Has anybody heard about, what are they called? The Sweet Baby Inc. That's it. Has anybody heard the whole weird stuff about Sydney Sweeney as well, which is kind of tied in a way. Yeah, it's cool that we have not learned it. 10 years since Gamergate kicked off, we're doing it again. Although it never really went away, did it? I mean, let's face it. Once again, it's people's ignorance about how things work just in general, how life works in general, and them just jumping to assumptions because everything's a conspiracy apparently. But yeah, if you don't know, there's this company called Sweet Baby Inc. and they're like a narrative design company. Basically, they're bought in by video game companies as kind of like do like passes on scripts and stuff, you know, to like read through scripts and like look at character designs and stuff like that. As kind of like diversity consultants in some issue, in some ways diversity consultants, but in other ways just kind of like to read scripts and go, yeah, actually that does make sense and that does seem okay, or you know, to catch like really stupid. Like, you know, make sure there's no one in there doing culturally insensitive stuff. But there's like a Steam group and a Discord server full of these people, like full of like 2,000 plus people who are all convinced that Sweet Baby Inc. are, I mean, like, bear in mind, the Sweet Baby Inc. is a tiny little company and they're like consultants, but apparently they are forcing diversity into all the video games, and that's why why video games suck these days. That's why the Suicide Squad games suck and stuff like that. And it's like, well, no, because it's kind of like the opposite of how they work. It's like they've got the exact opposite idea of how this works, and it's really frustrating. But yet they're kind of like doxing like the employees of this company and like threatening them and, you know, coming up with all these conspiracy theories. Yeah, it's just another example about people who have no idea how games are made or how life works. I think it was Keza McDonald who said in her Guardian article today that diversity in gaming is increasing not because somebody's forcing it in, but because the people who are making games and people who are interested in buying games is diversifying. He genuinely and very naively did not realize how many people are angry about Saga and Alan Wake being a black woman. No, because Saga, I came to really like Saga Anderson in Alan Wake. Well, there's a subset of people in society in general who see, there's the joke, isn't it, that there's two sexes, male and political, and there's two races, white and political. There is a subset of people who see life that way, and they're like anything. If there's a black person in the game like Saga, then it's not because that's just a cool character. It's because somebody's. And again, they blamed Sweet Baby Inc. for Saga being in the game as a black woman. You know, because a normal person, somebody who isn't flipping off the rocker, looks at Saga and just sees like a likable character. She's interesting because she reads as a, not just a, you know, she could just be another white FBI agent. I like Alex Casey as well, but no, she's like a, you know, she's a woman, she's black, she's a mother, and each of those things gives her a little extra layer of character that you wouldn't otherwise get if you wouldn't otherwise get if Saga was white or a dude. I mean, people are raging. There's like the whole conversation about people not getting the politics in, what was it, Starship Troopers? You know, because Paul Verhoeven makes famously unpolitical movies. You know, nothing political about Starship Troopers, nothing political about RoboCop, nothing political about Showgirls. I don't know, do people look at a film, do like conservatives, should I say, do some conservative people look at films or whatever, or media, and just get dazzled by like how flashy it is and stuff like that? Like, when conservative people, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like the same kind of way that people don't get, you know, there's loads of conservatives who like Rage Against the Machine and go, oh, Tom Morello's gone woke, he's become the machine. It's like, no. Just because he's a millionaire does not mean he's the machine. It's not. The machine is a capitalist society run by white supremacy. Yeah, fax machine, a washing machine. I mean, you listen to Rage Against the Machine, you listen to the original self-titled album from 1991, and the lyrics are still painfully relevant today. You know, over 30 years later. I wonder, it's got to be a lack of media literacy for a lot of people, but also I've got to imagine that there's a whole load of people who are purposely misunderstanding it as well. But to say something like Dune, for instance, you know, like, oh, I just want a sci-fi film, keep politics out of my sci-fi, I want to be able to go watch a sci-fi movie and turn my brain off, and it's like, well, you're at the wrong genre, aren't you? Because sci-fi has always been a big allegory for life. That's how sci-fi is made, is they take allegories for the world in which we're living and its issues, and use these fantastical elements to make those allegories, and say something about the world in which we live. Science fiction is beat, boop, shoot, laser. Exactly, they just want their pew, pew, pews. But yeah, I've got to imagine that there is a fairly significant subset of like conservative and right-wing people who, as long as something's flashy or grabs attention, like a jingling of keys, a jingle jangle, that they just assume it supports their worldview or is non-political. Because the one thing I'll always say is that everything is political, even if it doesn't have like an overt political message. Politics is baked into everything. As an artist, if you create something, then your politics influence things you create, even if they don't have like an overt political message. People say, like Tetris. The game of Tetris has its political side because of the world in which it was made and because of its creator. Like if you play Tetris Game B on the Game Boy, which Game B on the Game Boy version of Tetris, if you don't know, is not an infinite game. There's like, you have to make a certain number of lines and then the game ends. Then it gives you a little cutscene, and the little cutscene is of space shuttle launching or rocket launching, I forget, with like Russian dancers and stuff like that, and like the Kremlin there and stuff, because it was made and influenced and it was seeped in Russian culture. It was made by a Russian man living in Russia at the time where the Cold War was still going and there was the whole space race going on, and that all influenced the creation of Tetris, and where and when he made Tetris was just intrinsically put into that game. So, even if you don't go out and go, I'm writing this story, I'm writing about this. If it's a game without a story, the politics is still in there somewhere. There is no keeping politics out of art. Every piece of art has, everything is affected by politics, and everything has a political message of some description. Even if it's not intentional, even if it's not overt, it's still there because you don't live in a bubble. People who create these things do not live in a bubble. You do not live in a bubble, so you can't help but have it all affected. But on a kind of related note as well, there was the whole thing. Did anyone see the whole thing about Sydney Sweeney as well? She's not done anything, by the way. All Sydney Sweeney has done is have nice tits, basically, and like show them off a bit. Woman has breasts, more to follow. Let's be honest, cracking pair of tits. Let's not sugarcoat that. It's okay. She's allowed to have big, nice tits. But the fact, like, she was showing them off by her, having her cleavage out and stuff on, was it Saturday Night Live or something? People, again on the right, have declared that it means that wokeness is over. She's defeating wokeness by having nice tits. Apparently we're against nice tits, which is news to me. But I think more to the point, yeah, I think actually, Sarah, you've knocked it on the head of what I was about to say. Is I wrote on Blue Sky and Threads, because I'm not on Twitter anymore. I wrote on there that the whole thing about Sydney Sweeney is that some conservatives have either accidentally or on purpose to like inflame people, I don't know. They've taken, you don't have to look like Sydney Sweeney to be hot to mean Sydney Sweeney isn't hot, right? Or, you don't have to look this way to be hot to mean. But I think, you mentioned the 90s, and I think that's part of it, in that, there was that image of, there was that kind of like an all-American, bleach blonde, big boobied, stick thin woman that you saw all over the place in the 90s. I don't know how old people are in this chat and stuff, but if you really remember, I know I do. But there's like Pamela Anderson being kind of like the one that, I'm sure everybody will be able to recognise as being kind of the quintessential representation of that image, the big fake boobs and stuff. And bless her, she got hers, and Pammy's great, etc, etc. But kind of like over the years, we kind of diversified away from that image. Media became less saturated by that 90s big boob, long, bleach blonde, stick thin, all-American look, and diversified away from that, and the idea of thickness becoming sexier and stuff to people. You began to see a lot more of that in media, and like more different body sizes being celebrated, and like a kind of more an international flavor, shall we say. But yeah, we kind of diversified away from that image, and I think it's the same again. It's diversity again, diversity of body type or of race in the example of video games and having characters like Saga Anderson appear has made some very fragile people kind of go, well, we can't do this thing anymore. They've taken it to mean that body type, that Pamela Anderson look, is no longer allowed. It kind of ties into anti-feminism as well, because they're kind of like, oh, well, feminists don't allow big boob women on the TV anymore. It's like, no, we just don't approve of women with big tits being portrayed in one particular, the brainless bimbo kind of way, or being just used for the, as a sex object. That's what feminists are against, not people with boobs existing or showing them off, as my gran would say, if you've got them, flaunt them. I think that's what it boils down to, is that they've kind of taken it to mean that they're not allowed to enjoy that kind of thing, and, we're not allowed to have that kind of thing in media anymore, when it's not true. I mean, and if you look for more than 30 seconds over the years, you'll be able to find a number of examples of where that hasn't been true, I mean, look at Scarlett Johansson, for example. I mean, the number of pictures that have been in the media of her at, on the red carpet and stuff like that, in a dress with her tits pushed up and, looking fantastic and stuff. But there's been that diversity into different body types, into different cultural standards that have made people feel very fragile, like their their way of life is under attack. And it's not. There's nothing to say you can't enjoy big boobed women. There's nothing to say you can't enjoy or have white characters in shows. But also, the world is a lot wider than you, Mr. Fragile White Man. Got to share the space. It's not a zero-sum game. But please understand, other people want to see themselves reflected back at them, not just you. Yeah. Well, trust people on the internet to get really weird about a woman with nice boobs.